All right, let's jump right into today's explainer. We're looking at a truly wild Slack integration called Bridge. Now, the source material we're breaking down today is actually a demo video originally created for a Slack hackathon, specifically the Slack Agent Builder Challenge. But what makes this project so absolutely fascinating to me is how it tackles a massive, often invisible problem head-on: the daily communication barriers built right into our favorite work tools. We're going to unpack exactly how this AI agent works to tear those barriers down right inside the platform. Take a second and really think about this number. Over 1 billion. That's how many people globally live with some form of disability. And honestly, you have to add to that the millions and millions of professionals who are working every single day in a second language. When you look at the sheer scale of those numbers, you quickly realize that standard, out-of-the-box communication tools can actually be an absolute minefield for a huge chunk of the global workforce. Because here's the reality of fast-moving platforms like Slack. We are constantly firing off messages, dropping in charts, shooting off quick replies. But there is a hidden problem here. Every single time someone drops in a screenshot without a description, or, blasts out a massive thread packed with dense corporate jargon and confusing acronyms, they're unintentionally locking their own teammates out of the conversation. It's this quiet exclusion, but it happens thousands of times a day in almost every large organization. And that brings us to the brilliant solution presented in the demo script: Meet Bridge. Bridge is an AI agent specifically designed to make Slack accessible automatically. The whole goal here is to ensure that teammates who are blind, dyslexic, neurodivergent, or maybe working in a second language all have the exact same seamless experience as everyone else. And the absolutely crucial word there is automatically. So picture this first challenge. Imagine you're a blind teammate using a screen reader to navigate a channel. You're reading through a thread, and suddenly you encounter an image. Say it's a quick screenshot of an error code, or maybe a really important data chart. If the sender didn't take the time to manually type out what that image is, your screen reader just hits a complete dead end. It literally just says image. All that context, it's just entirely lost. Well, here is the first real wow moment from the demo. Bridge jumps in and solves this instantly. Whenever an image is dropped into a channel, Bridge automatically adds a threaded reply with a totally faithful description of that image. Whether it's transcribing an error message line by line or explaining the specific values on a bar chart, Bridge just handles it. That means no one in the channel ever has to remember to write alt text again. The AI just steps in and provides everything a sighted teammate would see. Okay, let's pivot to a different hurdle: dense corporate jargon. For neurodivergent teammates, or really anyone working in a second language, reading a massive, dense block of text packed with weird idioms and acronyms feels like hitting a brick wall. To fix this, the integration adds a super simple menu option right into the native Slack interface. You just hover over the confusing message, click the menu, and hit Simplify with Bridge. Boom. With just one click, Bridge generates a plain language rewrite of the message. It strips away all that confusing jargon and just gives you exactly what you need to know. But here is the most important part of this feature. It says only visible to you. This is an ephemeral message. The plain text version is delivered completely privately, meaning nobody is publicly marked or called out as needing extra help to understand the thread. Now, that exact same logic applies to the third big feature: translation, but specifically translation with memory. See, it's not just about simplifying text, it's about language itself. Bridge lets a user set their language preference exactly once. From then on, you can use that same drop-down menu to translate any message with a single click. And instead of awkwardly copy-pasting words into Google Translate, it translates perfectly right there in Slack, preserving the mentions, the formatting, and even the original tone of the message. But here is where things get really next level. Bridge isn't just a basic chatbot running simple if this, then that commands. It is a fully autonomous agent. Imagine opening up the assistant pane and giving it a highly complex, multi-step prompt like, find where we discussed the launch date and explain it to me simply in Hindi. Now, that is a massive ask for a standard program, right? But for an agent, it's just an instruction set. To pull off that complex prompt, Bridge actually enters what we call an agentic tool use loop. First, it searches the workspace. Then, it reads the context of the conversation. Next, it simplifies all the heavy jargon into plain text. And finally, it translates that text into the requested language. It autonomously chains all these actions together, with the AI model, in this case Claude, deciding each necessary step and giving the user live status updates along the way. It's incredibly slick.
Now, for you builders out there, before we look at the actual wiring of how this thing was put together, we have to highlight the 3 core technologies from the hackathon that work together to make this autonomy possible. We've got Slack's AI capabilities handling the core integration, the real-time search API pulling up the historical context of the workspace, and crucially, a model context protocol, or MCP server.
All right, let's look under the hood. Bridge is built using Bolt for JavaScript. But what is truly groundbreaking here is how these accessibility tools are structured. The simplification, the translation, the image description, they don't just live inside the bot itself. They run entirely on a standalone MCP server. Bridge simply consumes them as an MCP client. And because of this brilliant modular design, that exact same server can be plugged directly into a local IDE or Claude Desktop completely unchanged. It extends these vital accessibility tools way out beyond just Slack.
So, pulling this all together from the demo, the true essence of this whole project is privacy by design. All of these powerful accommodations, the automatic alt text, the one-click simplification, the memory translations, and the autonomous agent running the show, they're all built to be private from the ground up. They live natively right inside the Slack interface, delivering private help precisely when and where the user needs it without ever disrupting the main flow of the channel. To wrap this explainer up, I want to leave you with this really profound takeaway from the source materials. Accessibility isn't a feature you add later. With Bridge, it's built into the conversation. It fundamentally challenges how we think about software design, doesn't it? It leaves us with a pretty provocative question to ponder. As we continue to build and use these rapidly evolving digital workspaces, how can we ensure that true accessibility is baked into the very foundation of our tools, rather than just bolted on as an afterthought? Because at the end of the day, every message really should be for everyone.